across this Hebrew poetry. Did you get my name?
Yeah.
Through the La Vista Church of Christ in Nebraska. They've got a website that has a lot of good information in it, and I recommend for anybody that wants to go to that website to go there, because it is a very good website, and their sound, from what I can tell, very sound church. And this lesson was done by Jeffrey W. Hamilton. We are allowed to make copies. They tell us that on the webpage, so we're good with that. So, one of the things I find interesting about the Hebrew poetry when I got into it, to reading about it, is it makes your mind open up. When you read the Bible, you start seeing things that you didn't realize that was in there. And it's mostly, when you get 75% of the Bible, the Hebrew Bibles are written in a poetry form. So, by knowing that, it helps us to understand it better. But in English, it tells us up here that we create poems and songs by rhyming ending sounds and focusing on the pattern of rhythms. And a series of words that makes it. It works well in English, but it isn't really or easily translated into other languages because words, syllables, and symbols or rhythms are different. And it's like roses are red, violets are blue, sugar sweet, so is Maria. But it just doesn't work in the Hebrew. Any other language or English. But in Hebrew, you can translate into a lot of different languages. I believe that's why God had the Bible written in Hebrew. So, one of the things that we're going to look at here is there's a lot of parallelisms in the Hebrew Bible. And we're going to basically go through this, and this is a thing you should keep and work at getting to know this a little bit more on each one of these comparisons and also on the series. And this information, the more you read it, the more you learn about it, the more you see it quickly in the Bible. When you do read out of your Bible or study your Bible, you will see things out of that. But we're going to first take a look at these. And I don't know how far we're going to get with this, but if need be, we can go into next week also and continue with that. And eventually I would like for us to be able to, maybe not this time, but next week if we're doing this again, to break up into groups, small groups, and then like three people each, and we will go through some different chapters and verses in the Bible that we can just try to determine which one of these is talking about in here. Some of these compare to more than just one. You'll see more than you'll see one with synonymous, and you'll also see it with antithetic in the same verse. So let's start with this in the comparisons. If you turn your page 2. By the way, I want to thank Rob for doing all these copies for me. Really appreciate that. That takes a lot of time. And I hope everybody keeps these books because it's good information. And honestly, I don't know why in the world the church around the world doesn't study this to begin with when you're a new Christian, because it does allow your mind to start thinking about what some of the Bible verses are talking about. Let's take a look at the synonymous. It says an idea is expressed twice in different words. The use of varying words helps define ideas that some might not understand. It also conveys the exact thought, since words in a language carry a range of implied meaning. So if we look at Psalms 19, 1 and 2, you'll see that it's highlighted in different colors, which is one way to do this. There's another form that they use. Oxford University uses it in a different form. They do it in letters and numbers. But it's the same thing. So we got here, the heavens declare the glory of God. Okay, so you got the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. So, looking at this as a synonymous, it's expressed twice, just in different words. Okay, so you got the heavens, you got the firmament. You got declare, you got shows. You got the glory of God, his handiwork. Then day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. Sometimes there are double matches, one within a pair of lines, the other between two pairs of lines. And we look at Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Again, the synonymous, the earth and the world. The earth is the Lord's in all its fullness, and the world and those who dwell therein, for he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. And you can see the similarities in each one of those. And all its fullness and those who dwell therein, or has founded and established. So you see where that's going with the comparisons. Not every element has to match. In doing so, the poet knows or shows the same characteristics match different groups. In Job 3:17, of course this is an easy one. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. So you see the opposites, but they're, you got the troubling, you got the rest. Cease from troubling, are at rest. The synonyms can also appear in the same line. Psalm 22:6. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. Can everybody see that? What it's talking about? Any questions? Thoughts? Let's look at the antithetic. Instead of the same idea being compared, opposite ideas are contrasted. So here in Proverbs 3:33, we have the curse of the Lord is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the just. So he did the same, just the opposite. Notice that it does not have to be a perfect contrast. Both lines speak of the Lord and of houses or homes, and are thus also synonymous in regards to those elements. In Matthew 8:20, foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. The first two lines are synonymous. The repetition emphasizes that all creatures have a home. But the third line forms an antithetic. The Son of Man is not an animal, and he doesn't have a home. Proverbs 29:18, where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint, but happy is he who keeps the law. So we got the order of comparisons or contrast. It doesn't have to be the same between the lines. And you notice there is also contrast in number between many people and the individual. This indicates that only a few follow the law. So you can kind of see where that's going with if you were to read that without even thinking that that was poetry, you see the message that's behind it. But happy is he who keeps the law. And like it says, not only a few follow the law. Let's take a look at Matthew 13 and 4, or 7, 13 and 14. Matthew 7, 13 and 14. Who wants to read that?
Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it.
Okay, who can tell me similar or opposite ideas in this verse.
Wide is the gate, broad is the way, those two are similar there.
Right? How about the, at the end, who go in, buy it, and at the last, who find it? So wide is the gate, who go in, buy it. Narrow is the gate, who find it. Or the few who find it.
Oh, straight and narrow is that what you're saying, the straight and
No, I'm talking about at the end there on each one, end of 13, end of 14.
Oh, many and then few.
Yeah,
Oh, I
many
see
go,
what you mean.
many who go and buy it, and few who find it.
And you got the broad road
Right.
Correct.
and the narrow road.
Also, both of them have people going along the way.
Yes. Many more in the other, in the wide gate of destruction. Proverbs 15:7. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted calf with hatred. So we already know love and hatred are opposites. They contrast one another. And a dinner of herbs has nothing to do with meat. So you got fatted calf after that. So you can have very little to eat and be happy with love, or you can be, or the fatted calf is and be hated. Instead of a direct contrast, we have a comparison where one is better than another. Psalm 73 and 26. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Okay, so here we have what the opposite ideas that are contrasted. Not all lines are exact parallels in structure. The first line gives two things that fail because they are mine. The second line says the one God gives two things that last. Go over to synthetic. In a synthetic relationship, one idea leads to another or is derived from the prior. It can be cause and effect, an explanation or condition followed by a consequence. Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The fact that the Lord God is watching over me like a shepherd leads to the realization that my needs will be taken care of. That was pretty simple. Psalms 99:3. Let them praise your great and awesome name. He is holy. The last phrase explains why people should praise God's name. In Job 9:3, if one wished to contend with him, he could not answer him one time out of 1,000. And the reason men cannot argue with God is that we cannot answer his points. Psalm 24:9, lift up your heads, O you gates, lift up your everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. So the styles can be combined. Here, two synonymous phrases command an opening to be made, and the last phrase explains why it is necessary. Lift up, you gates, lift up your everlasting doors. The ellipsis. An ellipsis is when something is left out of a statement, leaving it to the reader to fill in the gap. This makes the reader actively involved in understanding the points being made. Thus, a comparison is made to something that is not said. One of the things that also need to mention about the Hebrew poetry is the reason they wrote it in this form is so they could memorize it easy. They would sing it and they would chant it, and it was something that they could keep in their mind, memorize it just trying to memorize a couple paragraphs. Just like when we sing our songs, our hymns, we know a lot of the songs by heart, but we try to just recite something from the Bible. It's not that easy. So an ellipsis is when something is left out of a statement again, leaving it to the reader to fill in the gap, and this makes the reader actively involved in understanding the points being made. Thus, a comparison is made to something that is not said. Proverbs 11:2. When pride comes, then comes dishonor, but with the humble is wisdom. So clearly the lines are antithetic. Pride is the opposite of humility, but dishonor and wisdom are not opposites. The opposite of dishonor is glory, and the opposite of wisdom is foolishness. So if you add in the opposites, then you realize that with pride comes foolishness, because the proud person doesn't think he needs to learn, and that foolishness leads to dishonor. However, with the humility is a willingness to learn, which leads to wisdom, and then in turn leads to glory. Can we all see that? Proverbs 11:28. He who trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage. Here again we have what appears to be an antithetic. Fall and flourish can be opposites, but trust in his riches is not the opposite of righteous. Adding in the opposites tell us that the wicked trust in his riches, and as a result will fall. The righteous do not trust in riches, and as a result will flourish like foliage. So trees lose their leaves, but they put on their new leaves. In the same way, the righteous will suffer setbacks, but will come back. So they tell us kind of a hidden story behind everything that they wrote in the Bible. But if we think in the way that they're thinking, it makes sense. And the more we get into this, the more you look this over and take time to read it for yourselves, you'll see what I'm talking about. You start reading the Bible and you start thinking even deeper into what you just read, because you weren't expecting it to just pop out at you. You start seeing the synonymous, synthetic, you start seeing the ellipsis in most of the Bible. Proverbs 24:16. For a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again, but the wicked shall fall by calamity. If you notice, the righteous and the wicked are opposites. They may fall and shall fall, are similar, though different, but there's no parallel to rise again. Extending the missing phrase, we realize that when the wicked fall, there is no rising again. So for righteous man may fall 7 times, yet he's going to come back. But the wicked shall fall like calamity, and they're gone. So in Proverbs 11:1-13, we find a long series of contrasts between the wicked and the righteous. But in the middle of this series, Proverbs 11:7 only speaks about the wicked. It says, when a wicked man dies, his expectation will perish, and the hope of the unjust perishes. So the implication is that the opposite is true for the righteous. When the righteous man dies, his expectations are fulfilled, and his hope lives on. Now the comparison for the emblematic. Emblematic statements are sets of comparisons, which could be A, B, C to D, or what A is to B and C is to D. Psalm 42:1. As the deer pants for the water brooks, so pants my soul for you, O God. Deer needs water, as does all God's creatures. In the same way, each person needs God to be healthy, well, and satisfied. Proverbs 11:22. As a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a lovely woman who lacks discretion. Rings in a pig's snout are used to lead the animal, especially when it is being stubborn. making a pig's nose ring, and gold doesn't make the pig any better or finer. In the same way, beauty doesn't make a woman better or finer when she lacks good judgment. We've heard the phrase, putting lipstick on a pig. Pretty much the same thing. Lipstick might be a pretty color, but it doesn't look good on a pig. The series, Progressive. This is a series of ideas. Psalm 12, 121, 5 and 8, 5 through 8. You notice here, it comes out with the Lord is, the Lord shall, the voice of the Lord down in Psalm 29. And then it goes on with what the Lord is and what he shall do and what the voice of the Lord is like. So that's the progressive. So it starts out with the Lord is, the Lord shall, the Lord. That's the progressive portion, the voice of the Lord. And in his temple everyone says glory. The climatic, a progressive series with a conclusion at the end. Habakkuk 3:17 through 18 and 18. Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will joy in the God of my salvation. And here there is building up from niceties of life, the figs, to more important fruit, the grapes, to fruit that is used in many ways, the olives, to food, grain, to meat and clothing, sheep to meat and working animals, oxen. The point is that no matter how bad life gets, the believer still rejoices in God. Psalm 29, 1 and 2. Give unto the Lord, O you mighty ones, give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due to his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. So we start with people who are strong, who then give God their strength and glory. But that glory is due to the Lord. So the conclusion is that we worship God in holiness. This is an interesting one. A nested series of ideas in the form of ABC CPA, where each letter represents a similar idea. Sometimes nesting is obvious, with the terms being almost a repeat. So if we look at Psalm 124:7, you see where the yellow is at the top and the bottom, and we have the green on the inside. So that's where we get our AP and EA. So our soul has escaped as a bird out of the snare of the trapper. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. So it starts out with our soul has escaped, and it ends with and we have escaped. So you start seeing patterns throughout the Bible that you were not aware were really there before. When I used to read in the Old Testament, especially Genesis, I noticed a lot of things were repeated. Like God just said it, and you read it again. And I never really understood why that was. I almost thought it was just so he could point across, which probably is part of it. But the Hebrew poetry is the reason why that Genesis is like that also. They can also appear in a single statement, Matthew 19:30, the one right below there. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So we start out with what the words are, and then ends with the same word first. First and first. Others are less obvious, while still showing a nesting of ideas, like I just stated. Because he has loved me, Psalm 91:14. Because he has loved me, and down below there, because he has known my name. unfortunately, some introversions get lost in translation. Psalms 26:4 is typically translated as, it usually reads this, I do not sit with deceitful men, nor will I go with pretenders. So, which shows synonymous ideas clearly, but the literal Hebrew says, I have not sat with men of falsehood, and with those concealed, not I will enter. If you look at the one above it again, you'll notice the similarities to that and the differences. Combination of styles can also be used. Isaiah 6:10. Make the heart of this people dull, and their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart. Here we have a nesting of three organs of the body: heart, ears, and eyes. Instead of a synonymous relationship, the matching lines are antithetic. Finally, the introverted series ends with a climatic statement that is the conclusion, and return and be healed. And we have the chiastic. It's an introverted series with the main point being a single idea in the center. Often that center idea causes a shift in view, changing the second half from the first. Psalm 56:2 and 4. For they are many who fight proudly against me. And at the bottom, the same color, what can mere man do to me? And then it goes to purple, when I am afraid, at the bottom of that, I shall not be afraid. Blue, I will put my trust in you, and I have put my trust. You notice the yellow is in God and in God. So, just like I said, it changes the first half from the first, the second half changes from the first. Chiastic form. Psalm 56 was written when David was arrested by the Philistines in Gath, and he ran from Saul. 1 Samuel 21:10-15. As we work inward, David faces many enemies, which causes him to fear. However, David has placed his trust in God, a trust that is grounded on God's word. Which David praises from that essential core that God always keeps his promises. David has mortal man to do. David has placed his trust in God, so will not be afraid. After all, what can mere mortal man do to him? Notice the reduction of many who were against David to a single man. With a firm trust in God, David's problems were reduced. So they tend to, in the Hebrew poetry, they tend to take it from major ordeal down to nothing because of his trust in God, which gives God the glory. Usually chiastic series involve chunks of ideas. Each subsection of a chiastic series can be composed of other poetic styles. Psalm 58. Do you indeed speak righteousness, you silent ones? Do you judge uprightly, you sons of men? Know in heart you work wickedness. You weigh out the violence of your hands in the earth. Down here, we got the purple and the yellow. So we're using the antithetic phrases here. Purple, it says, the righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. And up above, stillborn child of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Before your pots can fill the burning thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, as in his living and burning wrath. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf cobra that stops his ear, which will not heed the voice of charmers, charming ever so skillfully, and the blue below. Let them flow away as waters, which run continually when he bends his bow. Let his arrows be as if cut in pieces. Let them be like a snail which melts away as it goes. So in the center it says, break their teeth in their mouth, O God. Break out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. So it starts with the negativity, you might say, gets to the final result, the victory. This psalm creates a series of nested layers that are antithetic between the first and second half of each year, but are synonymous eternally. The outer yellow section deals with the fact that men do not judge righteously, but God is a righteous judge. The second nested level, pink, tells us that wicked men have dirtied their hands with violence against the righteous, but the righteous have their feet washed in the blood of the wicked. The third level, green, states that the wicked become immersed in their sins, apparently from birth. But God removes them quickly, so it is as if they were never born. The fourth level, blue, compares the wicked to the fast-striking, quick-killing serpent, but when God takes away their power, they become snails that slow fades away. The pivotal point is that God takes away the power of the wicked, changing the first half of the introverted series into the second half. Notice that the pivotal point is synonymous instead of antithetic.
There's the white part, right?
Yes. Psalms 4, hear me when I call, O God, of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. How long, you sons of men, will you turn my glory to shame? How long will you have loved worthlessness and seek falsehood? But know that the Lord has set apart for himself who is godly. The Lord will hear when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Meditate within your heart, on your bed, and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift up the light of your countenance upon us. You have put gladness in my heart, more than in the season that their grain and wine increase. I will both lie down in peace and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. So the outer layer sets up an apathetic state of mind, and David desires God to hear his plea for relief, a plea that is answered with peace and safety. The next set talks about the people who do not know God. They refuse to seek God, and they are surprised that God doesn't bless them. The third nesting talks of the righteous. God listens to their pleas, and they trust God to answer them. The innermost set of lines then becomes the focus. Too often we blame God for our problems when it is we ourselves who cause them. Get angry at the appropriate person. Think about what is being taught as you go to sleep. Notice that the central point is also in chiasm. Again, for the chiastic definition is an introverted series with the main point being a single idea in the center. Often that center idea causes a shift in view, changing the second half of the first. translating to English. The three outer layers going in top of the vastness of what God has. Going outward, the point is that there are things God has on his own. The focus is that we cannot figure out God or outguess God. The end of the poem is a list of prepositions that ends with a climatic. Okay, in this case it ends with a climatic. And on the back page, we have a double meaning. Statement that can be applied to two different things at the same time and both be true. Psalms 84 through 8. What is man that you take thought of him, and the son of man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than God, and you crown him with glory and majesty. You make him to rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens and the fish of the sea, whatever passes through the paths of the seas. In parentheses we have man. Could refer to mankind, since men were tasked with caring for God's creation. We find that in Genesis 1:28, Psalm 144, verse 3. But it also refers to Jesus, and the Hebrew writer applies it in Hebrews 2, 6 through 9. This is because Jesus took on human form. The first man is from the earth, earthy. The second man is from heaven, 1 Corinthians 15:47. So it does have a double meaning. And there's an exercise here at the bottom of this page that you can do to, if you want to do that at home. It kind of, it'll help make it easier to understand when you do the exercise. What I'd like to do though is, next week, like I said, we could go over these through the week and see if we can, next week, break up into groups of threes and figure out which ones out of that portion of the Bible, book, chapter, and verse, or verses, and figure out which ones they are. And you'll find most of them in Proverbs and Psalms. But if we do that, it'll help us grasp this even more of what it's actually talking about. So when you start reading through the Bible and you look at these and you try to look and see which it is. Is it synthetic? Is it ellipsis? Is it antithetic or synonymous or emblematic? You'll start seeing the differences. It's also, like we saw in Matthew, it's in Matthew also, it's throughout the Bible, different areas. So when you're reading that, you might want to just take notes and maybe write down what ones you might be interested in knowing more about. And then when it comes next week, we can work together in small groups and figure out what is what. Once we look more into the Hebrew poetry, I know for a fact that it's going to make the Bible reading a lot different. It puts it into a different perspective, like we've not known it before. So, any questions? Well, I'm happy that you guys at least went through this with me, but I know that right now it's new to me. I want to learn more about it because I know it's got a lot of good information that's going to help us to maybe understand verses in the Bible that we hadn't understood